Good morning, good morning, good morning, people. Good morning. You guys see the moniker. Please welcome in to people, new people, old people, welcome in. I had heard about this story. I hadn't really been following this story because I really rarely pay attention to the news, but I heard this particular story yesterday, and I wanted to speak on this story about this man who lost his son and went on a rant. So I just want to talk directly to Jeffrey Metcalf. I want to talk directly to this father. And this is not about politics, and this is not about court cases, and it's not about left versus right. I want to talk to Jeffrey Metcalf as one human being to another, one parent to another, one person to another. Because after listening to what came out of his mouth, out of your mouth, Jeffrey Metcalf, I don't think you understand what you have done. You think you've exposed Black people. You think you've told some hard truth that everybody else is too scared to say. You have not. All you've done is expose yourself. You pulled the mask off and showed the world exactly who you are. You sat there talking about fathers and EBT cards and slavery and entitlement and melanin, and you laughed while you did it. You reduced millions of people to a handful of ugly stereotypes. And somehow in your mind, you thought that made you look tough. It didn't. It made you look small. It made you look bitter. It made you look like a man who has spent so much time feeding his own anger that it finally ate away every decent and human part of yourself. But it's actually worse than that. What you showed me, Jeffrey Metcalf, is one of the oldest and ugliest parts of human nature. When some people feel powerless, when life beats them down, when they're angry at the world, they go looking for somebody to blame. They need a scapegoat. They need a group of people they can point to and say, they're the reason. That's what you're doing. That's what you did. You wanted to believe that no matter what was happening in your life, no matter how much pain or frustration or anger you carried around, at least you could still tell yourself you were better than somebody else. The sad thing is, you're not the first person to do it. History is full of people who blamed an entire race, religion, and group for the problems in their own lives. And every single one of them thought they were telling some uncomfortable truth. They weren't. They were taking the easy way out, because it's always easier to hate than it is to understand. It's always easier to blame than it is to heal. And you know what struck me the most about what you were saying? It wasn't even the racism. I've heard racism before. I'm 60 years old. I have heard people do racist and ranting things. What struck me the most was when you said that you were finally going to say what you really think. You admitted it. You admitted that these are the thoughts you've been carrying around all along. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. This wasn't grief talking. Because at first I thought it was just your grief. This wasn't you having a bad day. This was you. The real you. The mask came off, and what the world saw wasn't courage. It wasn't honesty. It was the ugliness inside your soul. And that part that should haunt you isn't what people online think about you. It isn't the criticism. It's not the comments. The part that should haunt you is that one day when all the cameras are off and all the interviews are over and you're sitting by yourself with nothing but your own thoughts, your son will still be dead. And your life will be changed forever because of the things that you said and experienced. You're going to remember that you stood in front of the whole world and told everybody exactly who you were, exactly who you are. And nobody made you do that. Nobody made you do that. Nobody forced those words out of your mouth, Jeff Metcalf. Nobody forced them out of you. They came from within you. They came from your being, from your soul. And think about the permanence of what you just did. Long after you're gone, your name is going to exist in digital archives. Your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren are one day going to look up your name. They're going to search for who their ancestor was, expecting to find a legacy of strength and resilience in the face of pain. And instead, they're going to find this. They're going to see a grown man undone, unraveled by his own bitterness, throwing a public tantrum against millions of strangers. You didn't just stain your own name, stain your name. You left a legacy of secondhand embarrassment for the generations of your family to carry. And I need you to understand something, Jeffrey Metcalf. You didn't embarrass black people. You didn't embarrass the people you were trying to insult. They're going to wake up tomorrow and still be exactly who we were before you opened your mouth. The only person you embarrassed was yourself. You embarrassed your family, your son. You embarrassed the people who raised you. You embarrassed every friend who has ever looked somebody in the eye and said, no, Jeffrey Metcalf is a good man. He's a good man. You just embarrassed all those people. You just made all of those people liars about you. And honestly, you embarrassed the human race. Because for all the things we've accomplished as a people, for all the progress we have made as human beings, for all the lessons of history that has tried to beat into our heads, you stood there and reminded us that there are still people who think the answer to pain is hate. You took your own suffering and instead of finding compassion, you turned it into a weapon and pointed it at an entire community. That is not strength. That's not masculinity. That's not leadership. That's weakness. That's pathetic. And don't tell yourself you're just saying what everybody else is afraid to say. That's a lie people like you tell themselves because it makes cruelty feel brave. Ooh, free speech. Ooh, 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 ooh. But it's not brave. It's lazy. It's intellectually lazy and it's morally lazy. You couldn't deal with the complexity of your own emotions. So you reached for the oldest trick in the book. Blame somebody who doesn't look like you. Blame all of those black people over there. True strength is holding on to your humanity when life gives you every reason to lose it. Giving in to your darkest instincts doesn't make you a truth teller. It just makes you ordinary. History is full of ordinary people, just like you, who let their bitterness turn them into something ugly. And don't hide behind the grief. Don't do that. Don't hide behind the anger. Don't hide behind the loss of your son, the death of your son. Grief can explain behavior, but it does not excuse your character. There are mothers and fathers who have buried children and somehow still manage to hold on to their humanity. Somehow they still manage to treat other people with dignity. You made a different choice, sir. You chose to use your pain as an excuse to dehumanize people who had nothing to do with your suffering. That's the most tragic part of this. You had a platform born out of immense personal loss and pain. You could have used that voice to build something, to demand real justice, or to honor the memory of what you lost, your son, with dignity and pride. Instead, you drag that memory into the mud with you. You turned a sacred, solemn grief into a cheap, hateful clown show internet circus. You used your own tragedy as a shield to say things that are beneath any decent human being, And in doing so, you didn't honor anybody, no one. You just cheapened your loss. I actually feel sorry for you, not because people are criticizing you. I feel sorry for you because carrying around that much hate has to be exhausting. Imagine waking up every day believing that millions of people you've never met are somehow beneath you. Imagine being so consumed by your anger and your hatred that you can no longer tell the difference between honesty and cruelty. That's not freedom, that's a prison, and you built the walls yourself. And don't look at the comment section or the few broken, angry people cheering you on right now and mistake that for validation. Oh yeah, tell them how it is. Tell them black folks what it is, what time it is. Cowards always run in packs, always. The people applauding you don't care about you, they care about your pain, and they certainly don't give a damn about your soul. They're just using your face and your voice to validate the ugliness inside themselves. You think you're a leader standing on a stage? You're a tool being used by an audience that will forget you the second the next viral distraction and story comes along. You don't owe me or anybody else an apology. You don't owe the people watching this an apology. But you owe yourself an honest look in the mirror, sir. Because if this is who you really are, after hauling out all that forgive and forget, let Christianity, I forgive you, blah, 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 all that bullshit you were spouting, this is who you are. What you did the other night is who you are. If this is what you truly think about your fellow human beings, then the biggest victim of that speech wasn't the black community. It was your own soul. That's what it was. And let me leave you with this. You looked into that camera believing you were exposing somebody else's flaws, but all you really did was expose your own. You didn't diminish black people. They don't give a damn what you think. You didn't rewrite history. You didn't prove a point. You stood there, and in a matter of minutes, you showed the world that after all of humanity's progress, after everything we've supposedly learned, There are still people who would trade their decency for hate. So you keep running from the truth. Keep hiding behind your anger. But remember this one thing. The people you attacked aren't thinking about you. They're living their lives. And you still have a dead son. And now you've lost your dignity. You are the one who has to live with what you became on that tape. You stood there, traded your entire life's character for a few minutes of cheap, bitter relevance and left yourself with nothing but an empty, hateful echo chamber. And that is a shame. And you are a shame that you have to carry completely by yourself. Because deep down, if you're honest with yourself, you already know that you should be ashamed of what you did.